So yeah, Daleks. This show started a little while back and I was determined to do weekly reviews, but then as it went on I got more and more disappointed, and I cared less and less about doing these weekly reviews and doing them on time. My review of episode 4 was late and barely about episode 4, and it's been 2 weeks since the finale came out and I still haven't done a review on it, so I decided to just roll some of the things I was going to say in my finale review into a big retrospective. Daleks was not good, and there were a few big reasons why. Let's start by talking about what I thought was its biggest problem: not making me care about the Daleks. In Doctor Who, the Daleks have always been portrayed as near-mindless killing machine. So when Daleks was first announced as a series with the Daleks as the main characters, I wasn't necessarily skeptical, but I was wondering what they were going to do with the Daleks to make them characters I could connect to and invest in. The answer was nothing. There were really only two Daleks that the show centered on, the Dalek Emperor and the Dalek Strategist. The Dalek Emperor is basically just a Dalek that knows it's in control, nothing special about him. The Dalek Strategist is more interesting, but not by much. It's interesting seeing one Dalek that's kind of the brains of the operation, but it doesn't go much beyond that. They tried to set up an arc for the Dalek Strategist where he has to decide whether or not he will stay loyal to the Dalek Emperor or try to become Emperor himself, but all that ends up becoming is it being hinted at in episode 2 as something the Entity wants him to do, and coming up in episode 5 as a way for the Dalek Strategist to beat up the Mechanoids. There's no personality in these Daleks. Every other character in the whole show is more interesting than the Daleks. I get that they're Daleks, but that's not an excuse for them not being good characters. You could have made them more interesting, or at least given them actual arcs. The only real way they decided to try to make you care about them was by making them fewer and fewer in each episode. I guess so that you feel sorry for them. In episode 2, all of the Daleks but one ship was eradicated. Then at the end of the episode, that one ship has even fewer Daleks, and a whole reserve of Daleks they once had is now destroyed. Then in episode 3, all of the Daleks on that last ship are killed except for the Emperor and the Strategist. But the thing is that they completely undo this in episode 5 anyway by just kind of saying, oh yeah, they also had extra Daleks in Skaro, which ruins it. Any ounce of character that these guys could have had was confined to them being the last of their kind. Now, it was kind of inevitable that the Dalek fleet would come back, but have them figure out a way to bring them back and come up with something more creative than, actually, some of the Daleks weren't destroyed, so yeah, which is worse because it's lazy. And it shows that these Daleks knew the whole time that there were these Daleks and that they weren't the last ones, which was basically how deep their characters went. Speaking of undoing things in the finale, the plot for this is garbage. When the trailer for this series dropped, there was some hype because the Mechanoids were revealed to be in the show, so everyone kind of assumed that they'd be the main conflict. But then in the actual show, they decided to introduce a new villain called the Entity. Sure, while non-corporeal villains are kind of cliche in Doctor Who now, at least the Entity was a threat to the Daleks. So cool, the Entity is the villain. So I assume the Mechanoids would only be in 1 or 2 episodes. But then the second to last episode, they destroy the Entity and the Mechanoids are the villain of the finale. This is horrible, and here's why. The series set itself up in the first few episodes to be a series about the last few Daleks defeating the Entity. But then at the end of episode 4, the Entity was no longer an issue, and at the beginning of the 5th episode, the Daleks were basically completely back strength-wise. So basically by the last episode, the two things that the series defined itself by were gone. If I watched episode 3 and you told me that the finale was just the Daleks at full strength fighting the Mechanoids, with the Entity just appearing as something being weaponized by the Dalek Empire to kill the Mechanoids, I would have thought you were crazy because that's a horrible idea. That would be like if Doctor Who ended with a series all about Ryan and Graham committing tax evasion without any involvement from the Doctor or any aliens. So yeah, Daleks, not very good. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchises you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.